All right, cool. So everyone, thanks so much for coming to ShortFest. I keep saying this over and over again, but this is a filmmakers festival, and we always really appreciate when filmmakers take time and come to Palm Springs in triple-digit weather and hang out and show us their movies. So thank you. This is the genre panel. We have some horror, we have science fiction, we have thriller, mystery, a little bit. And I just want to introduce you, and if you can give me a log line as to what your movie's about. So next to me we have Elaine Mongeon with Good Morning.
Hi, my log line is a father and daughter adapt to terrifying changes they never expected.
Ooh, well done.
You have a microphone.
Sure do. I'm Sarah. I'm the writer-director of Boléro. I think our log line is in the near future when telepaths are being used by the government as part of their secret police. A 16-year-old girl is hell-bent on finding the man who killed her father, more or less.
Hi, I'm Sam. Our film is a one-shot short about the devil.
Ilja, I'm here with Helsinki Mansplaining Massacre. It's a horror comedy about a woman who gets in a car crash and ends up in a strange house on Christmas Eve where all the men want to explain everything to her and then things escalate.
It's just the title itself. I remember when I watched your movie, the title had so much. And I'm going to start with this question to segue, and you can all give me your backgrounds, but there's so many tropes that you play with in your movie, so many horror tropes. Can you give us a background into how you got into filmmaking and what interested you into making, because you're a big genre. I read your bio, you love to work with genre, and so do you, I think. When did you decide to make movies? When did you decide that you want to make horror movies or genre movies?
Well, my background is I went to film school in Finland and I studied screenwriting, and this is the first thing that I directed myself, and it's specifically to do with, usually when I get an idea I very quickly run through a list of directors in my head that I think might be better at this, and on Helsinki Mansplaining Massacre I started hitting on empty because nobody makes horror in Finland, let alone horror comedy, so then I just realized that, those are for me. And I mean, I've always loved horror, even as a too young child, but the older I get, the more I kind of start to see the kind of tiresome tropes in it, and especially how women get portrayed in horror films, like the camera fetishizes them, but they have to be pure and virginal at the same time until something comes and penetrates them. So I kind of wanted to address that in the way that it's shot and told, so the gaze of the camera doesn't sexualize anyone.
What about the rest of you? How did you get into movie making? And I mean, yours isn't like strictly genre, but it's genre adjacent, I would say, maybe. But is there a point in your life where you're like, I'm making movies and this is the type of movie I want to make?
For me, it all started with watching films. I just really got into watching a lot of films. So when my mom started dating her new boyfriend, with whom she's now for 20 years, he wanted to have some dates with her, and so he gave me one of those Video World cards. And I was 11 and I started to go to Video World and started watching films, and that just led to me watching a ton of films. And so I really early got into thrillers, especially gangster films, and that's what I made now. I mean, it's a film about the devil but with gangsters involved, and yeah, that's what started it for me, just loving watching film. Yeah.
Me too. I was always my mom's movie date. She loves movies. She loves especially action, thriller, sci-fi films. So I grew up watching all of those and loving them, and never thought I would be a filmmaker. I thought it was very impractical. I was a very pragmatic child and was like, it just doesn't make it. The numbers don't make sense. You're never gonna. And then, well, here I am. I don't know exactly what happened along the way, but I know I was at NYU for undergrad studying communications and had a lot of friends in the film program, and I produced a couple of shorts and sort of started thinking, well, you know, if if they can do it, maybe you can do it. And then I PA'd on a bunch of big TV sets and learned a lot, and then got into USC Film School, learned even more. And this was, Boléro is my student thesis, so that's it.
And were you particularly a fan of science fiction from when you
Yeah, totally.
Are there any movies that kind of pop up?
Yes, Terminator, Alien, Blade Runner, those are tons of Ridley Scott movies. Yeah, I mean, all of so many movies. Battlestar Galactica was like the best TV show ever. I've watched it so many times. So yeah, I love world building, and I love dystopian films. And I think it's really fun to dive into new universes and sort of be transported by stories. So yeah, it's something that I'm really in love with and passionate about.
I think I'm definitely a sci-fi fan, and with dabbling in horror and action adventure also. My origins come from my brother and sister. They're 8 and 10 years older than me, and my brother definitely heavily influenced what I watched from basically the moment I came out of the birth canal, I think. Star Wars, Blade Runner, Alien, Terminator, same. Sarah and I have a lot in common.
So much.
So I kind of grew up obsessed with sci-fi, following in my brother's footsteps, and then also similar to Sarah, I thought becoming a filmmaker I never even really thought about it. I always wrote, but I had never really thought about getting into the movies because I thought being a doctor would be much more practical. And then freshman year of college, I took Chem 101 and quickly discovered that I did not want to spend the next 8 years of my life taking science classes, and called my mother in tears, and she said, "Get the fuck out." And I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "Get the fuck out. If you're not going to be happy, you really need to do something that's going to make you happy. What about film? You love movies." And so I switched majors and went to film school and moved to LA right after graduation, and I've been in the industry for quite some time. And I made this short film through a program called the Warner Brothers Emerging Directors Workshop, and had a great experience making it, and now I'm pursuing writing, directing full time, and I also have a science fiction book coming out next year. It's a young adult sci-fi space opera that I co-authored with my writing partner, Glenn Zipper.
No, I was just gonna say, good mother.
Yeah.
Yes. She's right there.
But whether you went to film school or you didn't go to film school, everyone has an opinion on film school and whether you need to go. So I was wondering if you guys can give us your hot take on going to school for film. And again, this is being filmed, so maybe not name names, or if you want to go for it.
I think it's different for everybody. For me, I think it was really great to go to film school, and my film school is pretty open, where I've pretty much never heard of a project that wasn't allowed to be shot. And in a way, what I think is great about film school is that you learn, in a way, a lot of rules and how to do things. And then after a few years, at the beginning I thought, oh, there's this one way of how everything has to be done. And after a few years, now I'm in my 7th year, and I think I realized, no, I just have to do it my own way and basically, in a way, forget what I've learned, because it's now just part of me, and kind of deconstruct these rules of the film school, and that's something I took away. So I think it's good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy I went to film school. I think it depends on what kind of a person you are. If you're already the kind of person who can just go out and get things done, then you don't really need film school. And if you have people around you who you can rope along, then probably you don't need it. But for me at least, I'm still very much an introverted person, and I think going to film school and getting stuff forced out of you and so on, I think that helps a lot, and at the same time it creates this artificial bubble where things gain more significance than anything else, which is kind of the fucked up experience of it. And I mean, sometimes the teachers have ended up there maybe because they don't have a career going anymore, so they can have a lot of bitterness which gets passed down to the young people, which I think that's the bad side. And I made a very conscious decision at one point in like after a couple of years in film school, having observed things around me, that whatever happens, I'm not gonna get bitter, because I think that will destroy you creatively.
I could say that film school was very helpful in terms of, I focused mainly on screenwriting because I could not afford to take a lot of production classes, but that, you know, provided a great basis in terms of storytelling. And then also, my big takeaway from going to film school was the network, because I got my first job, I got my first internship through where I went to school, through a school trip that they had organized. My first job was from that internship. My senior year of college, my boss from the internship called me halfway through the school year and said, "My assistant sucks, will you come move to LA and be my assistant when you graduate?" And that just completely, I can literally track, it's like a family tree, I can track how I got each and every single job after that. And if I didn't have that very, very first job, I wouldn't be sitting right here today. And it's a really interesting thing. One thing led to another through all of the people that I met along the way.
Yeah, I also am echoing everything that you guys have already said, but I think I came to film school at a really good time. I had been working for 3 years in the industry as an AC and as a PA, and I really was coming at a time when I knew a lot of weaknesses that I had as a director, and was very keen to hone in on them and learn more. And I think the network is one of my biggest takeaways, is the friends that I have who are in my cohort, who are going through the exact same thing I'm going through now, and who I can call, well, frankly, like 3 times a day to ask advice from and continue working with. And I feel like I met filmmakers who I'm going to continue working with for the rest of my life, or at least I hope to. So that's just the best thing a gal can ask for. And I also think it gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me a lot of confidence, not just about being on set, but about pre-production, post-production, what I'm allowed to ask for as a director, what I should ask for as a director. It really instilled me with a great knowledge of what I'm allowed to kind of demand and what is required of me too. So that was really great, walking away from that.
The short film industry is so different in so many different places, and it's an international film festival. So I'm always curious if Sam, could you talk a little bit about the film industry, but specifically the short film industry from Germany and Finland?
Well, in Finland there's no private investors or studios or anything like that, so it's all kind of publicly funded through the Finnish Film Foundation and then the broadcasting channels. And they also fund short films, like the Mansplaining film was part of this initiative there, where they had a call for treatments, and then they invested in 3 for script money, and they gave script money to 6, and then 3 got made, and I got to be a part of that.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty similar in Germany. Like, everything is state funded, there's no private funding, there's not really a market for shorts. So the only way you can ever make any money with it is by winning festivals, and then those festivals, there's like a very complicated funding system where the more you're on festivals, and certain festivals you will get a number of points, and these points you can turn into your next project. But there's no market in Germany. Like, I've never heard of basically a short being picked up and then turned into a feature or something like that in Germany.
So it's the same in Finland. Like, there's no money in shorts, so if a producer wants to make a short with you, it usually means that they want to have a longer relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there's money in shorts anywhere.
Fair enough.
But it's your world premiere, and it's your world premiere also. But we talked a little bit about festivals, and we were actually talking about this on opening night, where mostly you do genre festivals, and it's, but do you kind of wish that non-genre festivals pick you up? Like, what's been your experience at non-genre?
Well, it's really nice that the film has found its way into non-genre festivals as well, so it kind of can communicate to people who, it's kind of meant to be like a Trojan horse to genre festivals. So people watch horror all day and then they get something that kind of loves horror but also critiques it. But then I think, well, here it's been nice because I've been to a couple of festivals where the genre section has been like, well, go play in that corner there with your genre films, with the proper films are over here. But you do get that sometimes.
What about the reception for Good Morning for festivals?
I would say the majority of the festivals I've been to, because we're kind of at the tail end of our festival run right now, have actually not been genre festivals. I kind of, I basically went off a list and then picked a select few genre festivals, and so it's actually played pretty well at the non-genre festivals. And I have to say, like, one of the cooler festivals I went to was the Unsa Festival in Denmark. If anybody gets into that, it's a phenomenal festival. Good Morning was the only film from the United States that got in last year, and I've had just a great time at a lot of very diverse, very different festivals, and I don't know. It's definitely interesting playing in a block that you're the only genre film, because it's totally unexpected compared to I was in this block that was like a family block, and all the films were wildly different, and then I think maybe Good Morning played last, and it was definitely like a very it was very different. So yeah,
How
it was
long
great.
did it take you all to complete your movie? Yours is super, visually it's really ambitious, Boléro. So I imagine there was a lot of time. Yours is short, but it's also visually really intricate. How long did it take you all? And also, since we're talking about style, just talk a little bit about the look and your influences, if you were looking at anything while you were making your movies.
So ours was 1 day of shooting and 1 day of rehearsing, but I would say Lucas and I, my DOP, we spent like 8 weeks in preparation for it, and then like inspirations, I'm really into Jean-Pierre Melville, the French director who did like Cercle Rouge and Un Flic, these like gangster noir films from the 70s in France, and that was something we were looking at. So we kind of wanted to deconstruct the gangster noir genre in a way with our film. And in general, I mostly come to my ideas through visual elements, and that's really my way of getting into a story.
So you start with the visual and then you find your script.
Yeah, I mostly start with something I see, and then from there the story comes afterwards, which is probably different from most others, but yeah.
How about the rest?
We had so much pre-production. We had so much more than you. We worked on the film for almost 6 months before shooting. We were a student production, so we started crewing up pretty early on, finding the right department heads from our student crew and all of that, and we got really deep into it about 3 months before shooting. And a lot of it was simply because we had stunts. It was my first time doing action, and I learned very quickly that that influences every single department, from locations to production design to wardrobe to everything. You need to be on the same page, you need to communicate, you need a lot of time to prep. So that was really cool and new learning experience for me. And we focused, I was so excited to do action because it's my first time working on an action short. And so one of my biggest influences, Atomic Blonde, came out last year. David Leitch directed, and I love the way that he shoots action, and I love how you're with the character as they're getting pummeled, basically. I thought that was pretty cool and very human and very real, and was very influenced by that when we were thinking about our action sequences. So I also love The Professional and Luc Besson, and so those are some of the things that I was thinking about while making the film.
I can't really remember how much prep we had. Because of the way the program was structured, the point of the program that I went through at Warner Brothers was they wanted us to take a film through the studio process on a micro level. So in order to get into the program, we just applied with a one-page synopsis of the short film, and then we wrote and developed our scripts with the studio. So I think I turned in my first draft of the script in the beginning of February, and then I shot at the end of April, and it was a 3-day shoot. I was sort of in hard prep for probably 8 weeks, and then 3 or 4 of those weeks were actually on the lot at the studio. But and I took about 6 weeks to find my DP because I really wanted a woman who could shoot very cinematically. And I went through about 35 reels from the IA to find my DP, Lisa Weekend, who's amazing. And in terms of influences, I have an action component as well, and I looked at The Bourne Identity a lot, and also John Wick for the action sequence. But and then in terms of references visually, I think I pulled stills from about 15 different films that I provided to Lisa, and we together came up with the look, and she immediately was in my brain and knew exactly what I had in mind, so she was able to execute on that and did an amazing job.
I think we got funded in August of that year, and then we were shooting in January, but because it's a Christmas film, so we were waiting for snow, which never came. It came the next week after we shot, so thank you, nature. But I think I can't remember how much of it was active pre-production, but there's some splatter elements in there, and I wanted to do them practically, so that took a lot of planning. And then we had 5 days shooting. It's a 15-minute film. It's like 3 days in location and then 2 days in the studio, one of which was entirely devoted to buckets of blood.
It's funny because you all actually have a lot of action in your movies, and so much of the success of it is dependent on physical, how I mean, if you don't do action right, it totally ruins the thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
Did you do a lot of, I imagine for you it was a ton of rehearsal, but you said a day of rehearsal?
Yeah, we had a full day, because with the one shot, if one thing doesn't work, the whole thing fails. So we had a stuntman, and actually the most complicated thing, which is now at the end of the film, was at the very beginning of the shoot, because it's in reverse later, and it was with a stuntman, and we did 18 takes, but 12 of them we stopped after 1 minute because something didn't work. And
How long's your movie?
5.
Are you all exclusively directors, or do you dabble in other departments?
I'm mainly screenwriting. I think we're planning to do another short horror comedy this year in kind of the same vein, but it's about dick pics, and that one I'll be directing as well. But I wrote a feature horror drama that's gonna start shooting in August for another director.
Is it another Christmas movie?
No, that's about a 12-year-old girl who's been taught to always be perfect and never reveal any weakness inside her, and then she finds this bird's egg, and she sleeps beside it, and each night the egg gets bigger until out of it hatches this half bird monster, half anorectic little girl that goes out and does all the buried impulses that she keeps hidden.
What about the rest of you? You're right. You're mostly screenwriter, or you came from screenwriting, I should say.
Yeah, I think my focus at the beginning was screenwriting, and then I actually because I was told I was good at it, I sort of gravitated toward producing for a long time, and worked in the support role for a long time, and then was an associate producer for many years before branching out to finally direct. But I was writing the whole time while I was working the day jobs.
I'm focusing on directing. I've produced a lot too, but I'm not a writer. I wrote this, but I don't think I'm a writer. Rather work with someone a lot smarter than me, so that's the bottom line.
You're a good director.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I had to write this, and I sort of co-wrote my other shorts, but I'm now working with a screenwriter for my first feature, and I'm not a writer. I want to focus, I want to have the time to focus on directing, and yeah.
I think for me it's the other way around. Like, I know I have a lot more ideas than, because directing for me is such a specific point of view that you're kind of imposing or putting on the material, and I have no interest in being like a director just for directing, because it also takes a lot at least out of me. It's a hell of a lot of fun, but it's also very exhausting, and writing for me comes easier in a more of a variety than directing would.
What kind of movies do you guys, what kind of filmmaker do you want to be? Is there something that you want to put out there? Are you making that now? Is that what you're doing?
Anyone ever watches a film I make, I'll be very happy. I'll die a happy woman. That's all I want, is to make movies that reach people. That would make me very happy.
I think I want to make dark films about people that make bad decisions. That's always what I've been interested in.
I think for me it's the most important thing kind of is, because at the heart of it all, what we are doing, despite the industry and the financing and everything, what we're basically doing is we're sitting in a sandbox going, and then this could do that, and then no, and I want to keep that element part of it, that playing around in a sandbox. If I can't do that, then it doesn't make any sense for me to start anything.
For me, it always starts with the characters, well-developed characters, and a good story. But ultimately, I like strong female protagonists, and thankfully, the market seems to be very open to those now. I think that the market was always open to having strong female protagonists. It's just there's actually a call for them now. There's been this shift that hopefully is continuing to shift in the right direction in terms of gender parity on all fronts within the industry.
And to close it off, is there a piece of advice that you would like to give other filmmakers who are, either at their beginning stages of their careers, or people who are looking into going to filmmaking, or something that you wish you would have known before getting into filmmaking? Anything?
I see the mic going to your mouth.
The one thing that I can say for sure, there is no one way to get to where you want to be. There's just no blueprint. Everybody does it in a different way, and you kind of have to do what you think feels best for you. It took me a really long time working in the industry to finally direct for the first time, and I think that those many years of experience only added to the final product. In terms of the final product, but also in terms of the team I was able to bring together. I think that, a large part of filmmaking, and this is a good lesson too, that I learned from the people that I worked with before and during making this film, is that collaboration is one of the most key and most important components of filmmaking, and you have to trust your team. You have to always remember that it's a team effort. I wouldn't have the film, this film wouldn't be what it is without this amazing team of collaborators that we were able to bring. My producer, Julie Anderson, and I were able to bring together, this from the production designer to the stunt coordinator to the movement choreographer to the, you know, to the, I could go on and on. Everybody's made, you know, it's just the editor, like everybody plays such an important part, and everybody brings ideas to the table, and you have no idea who's going to come up with the great solve. You know, it could be anybody on your team, and I think it's just incredibly important to be open-minded and, you know, to accept feedback from people on your team, because it's so important to trust them.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think it's kind of all the kind of it's a cliche, but things become cliches because they start out as something real. But you kind of have to discover what type of film you want to be doing, like what kind of ideas keep you going, because it's likely that if you're developing a feature that you're going to be working on it for at least 4 years if things go well. And so it has to be something that keeps you burning for it, but then also you have to choose who you do it with very carefully, because I don't know, especially in Finland, sometimes people, like writers especially, they're scrambling around trying to get anything going, and then if someone grabs it, they're like, oh, they're interested, I'll do it with them. But I think you have to be careful in deciding whether you want to really spend 4 years of your life with that person or not. And that's kind of a key thing, because if you spend 4 years of your life struggling with the wrong people, you'll go nowhere and you'll be bitter by the end of it.
Yeah, it's hard to add something to that, but I think you should really try to make the movies you want to make, and not worry too much about what others want, which is not to say that you should forget about the audience, but yeah, just listen to yourself and take your time. I think that's most important.
Because I think if you're telling your idea to someone who's in a position of power to grant you access ahead, then they can tell whether you're excited by the idea or not. And that's a very instinctual thing, and so you have to be honest in that regard. And you have to be honest about the shortcomings of the project at that stage as well, I think. At least in Finland, I don't know here.
Yeah, one thing maybe I would add is someone gave me a great piece of advice after I've been working for a couple of years. And I said, I think I'm really interested in directing. I have some stories I want to tell. And they said, well, just stop talking about it. Just do it. You know, and that was something that I really had to get over. Like, it's never going to be the right time. It's never going to be perfect, especially when you're making short form content and you have no money. You just have to do it, and you have to do it a bunch, and then hopefully you get better. And I think that's the best advice someone's given me when I was first starting out.
That's great. Well, thank you all so much for being at ShortFest, and congratulations to all of you. And thank you to all of you for